listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth in a five-part series of disability webinars. This is Independent Living Part 2, or basically all around personal care. Bit of a special webinar coming to you live from New York, so we're 5 hours behind you at the moment, it's 2:30. And the reason I say we is I have a couple other people in the room with me to help deliver this particular topic, so I'll introduce them in a moment. Kind of housekeeping first really is I hope the internet connection's all good from our end. If you have any trouble, do write in the chat box and let me know and we'll try and get it sorted, but hopefully the Wi-Fi in the hotel room should hold up. And then otherwise, yeah, it's the same as I think everyone on the webinar today has been here before, so you should be familiar with the chat box generally to ask questions as we go along. What's happened to the sound, Vic saying? Can you actually hear me, Vic? Just give us a little in the chat box. Okay, we're back. Okay. So as I say, hopefully the internet's going to hold up, but otherwise it says all the other webinars have been before. So we'll move on to the introduction. As I say, as you've all been on here before, I'm not going to do the big background intro to sort of where I've been up to and why I'm delivering the webinars and everything. But there's that nice little cheesy mugshot of myself. And then I've got Mr. Srin Madipalli and Toby Mildon next to me in the hotel room, who we're all holidaying together. So I'm just going to let them do a little introduction. We'll start with Srin.
Hi everybody, my name is Srin. I'm 25 years old. Like Martin, I have SMA2. I have been living independently since I was 17 using the help of personal assistants. When I'm not on holiday in New York, my day job is a solicitor in the City of London.
Hence the very sharp suit picture we've got out there, yeah?
Very sharp.
And on to Mr. Toby Mildon.
Hiya, yeah, I'm Toby, and I'm 30, friend of Martin and Srin's. I live in London and work for the BBC, and yeah, it's great to be on the call with you.
Cool, so I say we're all going to be presenting the slides today. It's kind of a shame actually that the webinar in 2 weeks around leisure and travel isn't today. It would have been quite apt for us all to have been able to share some of the general experience we've had in New York, which is all going very well so far. Had a few of the little glitches with some of the equipment today, and we're getting a new hoist delivered later on, but that's very much par for the course, and we'll talk about all that sort of thing in a couple of weeks. But in terms of today, we are here to talk about personal care, and these two helpful chaps are going to assist me in delivering the slides. So to kick off, the outcomes, as when you signed up, you should be aware of them, but we'll just quickly roll through, and these are the things that we hope that you will take away with you after this hour session. And they are what to expect and how to prepare for a care assessment, deciding what your outcomes are, how to reach your outcomes, recruiting personal assistants and the responsibilities of this, running a care team, and how to always progress and set new outcomes. So if you hold all of them in mind as we're going along, then that should all be good. So kind of specifically, the slides we're going to go through will look at what personalisation means, what to expect from your assessment, how to deal with any potential issues. As I've already sort of mentioned on the equipment front, there's always going to be ups and downs when dealing with social services and budgets and everything like that. So hopefully a few helpful tips along the way. How to recruit PAs, offering and accepting the role, day to day. So once the team's set up, just the kind of housekeeping of running a care team, retention, and then new outcomes. So looking how you sort of further and progress yourself and using your social care to enable that. So here's a little definition, what personalisation means. So I've pulled this off of a Wikipedia style background resources. It enables the individual alone or in groups to find right solutions for them and to participate in the delivery of a service. From being a recipient of services, citizens can become actively involved in selecting and shaping the services they receive. So possibly a little bit jargonistic, but what that's actually trying to explain is that rather than being told this is how your care will be delivered, it's very much about an individual with a disability being able to express what their wants and needs are from life, and then having the means and the resources to make that possible and to be a part of creating their care functions. So is there anything you two want to pitch in with at the moment, or shall we carry on?
Carry on, that's pretty good.
Good, good. So I think Alan's just saying his hope that we're enjoying our trip out here. As always, do write little questions in the box, and I'll try and check them as we go along. Vic's saying watch Srin and Toby.
Watch your back.
But we'll deal with the more sort of broader questions once we've been through all the actual slides as well. But do let me know if there's any technical glitches along the way, please. This is innovative stuff, this live from New York malarkey. So I've put at the bottom of the slide about the 3 phases, and that was very much about my personal experience of going to uni, where I didn't really have as much responsibility for the money and the budget. That went straight to the University of Coventry, but I still had personal assistance for the first time in my life. Then I moved to London, and that was where I was then responsible and in control of the budgets and recruiting and all the things we're going to talk about. And then more recently, the outcome pilot scheme, which I underwent in Hackney, and that was where it wasn't just about care, it was more about the outcomes that you want to have from living everyday life. So it's not just what care you need and what budget fulfills that, but it's more about what you want to do in your life and how care but other resources can make up a part of the way you can achieve that. So that was the sort of 3 phases I would define my personal experience by. I'm sure it might have differed for both of you. I mean, did you have full-on personal care at uni, Toby?
Yeah, I did, but I used an agency at uni, and so the money went straight to them.
Okay, so it was when you went to London that you were more in charge of it.
But in London, I've got, the money comes into my account, and then I pay my carers out of that money.
Okay. How about you, Srin? Was
I
it?
think mine was a little bit different. My personal budget started when I first moved to university, so as soon as I left home and started employing personal assistants, I immediately directly employed them without the use of any agency.
Okay. So it's that kind of where every individual has different experiences, really, isn't it? But hopefully we can give a general guidance on things to consider and helpful tips to apply to your own situation. So starting off with the assessment, something a lot of people are never really sure what to expect. So the 3 pictures that I've put on this slide are sort of the question marks, and that's in terms of asking yourself what you actually want from life, but also the questions that you will be asked by social services to then work out what resources you need. And that's exactly what the second part is. So I put money because obviously funding is a massive part of having the right resources and means to employ care and do all the other things that you want to do. But other times resources can just be helpful information. So one of my outcomes was about trying to get more physical exercise, and the way that was solved was just that the local swimming pool in Hackney had an accessible pool where the floor would raise up and I could get into the pool without having to sort of be thrown in by a couple of lifeguards, which is always a positive. And that was a resource without it being a financial aspect as well. So, and then finally the nice little pretty picture of the tropical island and the horizon is that kind of being able to do the things like we're doing today, really. So if travel is something you want to be able to achieve, then the whole assessment process works out how you can facilitate that and make that a truism. So they're the 3 aspects that should be sort of brought out of the assessment. So in terms of the questions side of the assessment, obviously there's going to be a lot of questions around the personal care that you would need, so whether it would be showering and hoisting and all those types of things. Also on top of that, there's household tasks. I mean, every local authority will differ on the way that they sort of segment the funding and the questions as well, but certainly for Toby, Srin and I, doing the sort of cleaning around the house and the washing is not possible, so having someone to help with that is a necessary. Health, so for example in the winter time chest infections can happen, and that would have to be built into the social care if you would need extra support for that, as an example anyway. Accommodation, so if the accommodation is accessible, finding the right place, and then obviously having ways of making the place that you live in accessible with relative equipment and grants and all that sort of thing. So all of that can be built in to the overall assessment that you have. Emotional needs, so that would probably relate to people with different impairments, and sort of the ability to be able to make decisions for yourself and all of that world. And finally, social activities, because it's not just about doing the housework and having a shower. It's that you have the right support to enable you to get out and about and go to the pub and do everything else. So, is there anything you two want to add to at the moment? All looking very happy as we tick along?
Yeah.
Cool. As I say, keep letting us know if any questions come up along the way. But the top tip I put on this slide actually was consider your limitations fully. When we were talking about the slides earlier, I said to these guys about how, because I have the sort of can-do attitude, as Srin and Toby do as well, it's very easy to sort of underestimate the needs that you do have. So in trying to say, oh, I'm okay for periods of time on my own, and if such and such is left out for me, like a drink or food, I would be okay. But actually, you know, the level of disabilities that we have, it's very, very necessary that someone is around all the time to be able to help and support, as, you know, you won't be able to get out the house or nip to the toilet and things like that. So while it's a good thing to have a can-do attitude, when you're having an assessment, you need to be very good at explaining the needs you have to ensure that the funding can actually support those needs as well. Otherwise, you'll find there'll be quite a big hole in your budget and in your care provision. So yeah, always be very aware of your own limitations and be willing to communicate that as well. So planning and getting started. So this is having had all of the questions from your social worker and talked about what it is you're looking to get out of life, and, you know, basically ended up having the resources given to you and the budget decided. The first thing to look at is, can the budget sustain the needs that you do have? So you have to be very realistic about, you know, what would an hourly rate for a PA or a day rate for a PA be, and will the budget cover that? And then, as I said earlier, what other resources you would need as well. But really understanding the responsibilities are a big part of this. So thinking about the taxes that have to be paid. So for those that don't know, do you want to talk about this bit, Srin, about the tax stuff?
Well, as you are employing someone, you still have to pay their tax and deduct it. And as a direct employer, the responsibility goes upon the employer to make sure all the taxes are correctly paid and the correct amounts are paid. I'm not sure whether Martin's going to cover this later on, but there are quite a lot of sort of resources out there, both available on the internet or from HMRC or from actual payroll management agencies who your local social services can put you in touch with, who often can do all the calculations for you. And that's exactly what I do, because I just think for me personally it would be quite difficult to do all the calculation for taxes myself. So by using a payroll agency, even though they charge a small fee, it just makes life a lot easier because they can just take that problem away from my hands.
Yeah, definitely. And we're, yeah, as you say, we're sort of in a more practical everyday sense. There'll be some resources to help everyone that will cover off that. But yeah, that's really helpful to put it in the broader context. So have you got anything to add on the sort of responsibility side, Toby? And I've got on here about law as well and about rotas, so broadly about knowing those are responsibilities.
Yeah, I think a large part of it is down to being organised. You know, I keep a rota on Google Documents, and so my carers can just log in and see the rota.
That's a good idea.
And,
I might use that one now.
Yeah. But I mean, I do all the tax myself actually, and I mean, it took some getting used to, but now it's pretty easy. And as Srin said, there's lots and lots of resources out there. HMRC, even though they love collecting taxes, are actually very helpful people.
They can help you pay more tax.
Yeah, they help you pay more tax, but they are quite helpful when you ring them up.
Yeah. And I think it's, the overall point of this slide really is to echo that it's all about understanding all these things we've just discussed before you go into it, because I think some people go into knowing that they can direct their own care and then live the life sort of easier with more choice and control and, you know, spontaneity. But equally, there are a lot of things that underpin it, aren't there, which we've just discussed. And it's important that people know that before they enter direct payments and personalisation.
Because when I first started doing this, actually, I got a little bit caught up on the organising the tax, because, you know, you have to pay employers' tax. So let's say they give you £1,000 a month. You can't really give £1,000 a month to your carers. You have to give them, say, £900, because like £100 would be, you know, tax that you have to give as an employer. Yeah. So
and that's all very much to the planning, isn't it?
Yeah.
To know that up front.
Yeah.
So before you even start recruiting people, you know exactly the amounts that are there to pay, but then the amount to make sure you leave behind for the tax.
Yeah.
So it's sort of cutting up the budget is like a big pie, isn't it? And it's sort of cutting up the area for the tax, and then maybe we'll touch upon like liability insurance,
Oh yeah,
which will come under the law side. But that would just be, you know, if a personal assistant had an injury through to work, then there'd be liability insurance would cover that. So there's lots of other things in that area to consider, but it all comes down to the planning and making sure there's enough money to go around properly.
Yeah.
And then finally up at how to meet those responsibilities, and that's whether it's in or out house. So a bit like you were saying, Srin, there are agencies and brokerages that can support you.
You outsource it too.
Exactly, whereas some people like Toby saying does his tax himself. So it's kind of a balancing act of your skills and
Personal
knowledge of
choice.
it. Yeah, and the time that you have as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So again, that's why I always come back to talking about the broad thoughts about every single, you know, point we make throughout these webinars, but it's always about then applying it back to your situation and kind of considering what does work best for you, and trial and error. I think we probably all have taken a while to kind of come to where we are at now, sort of 10 years down the line. So
Oh yeah.
okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. So the sourcing external support, which is what Srin was mentioning a moment ago. So local authorities, sometimes they, within the actual local authority, offer assistance with payroll and other aspects that we've discussed. So always go to a social worker as a first port of call to consider that. The brokers and agents. So I used an organisation called the Rowan Organisation, and they made sure that all of the pay went through the PAYE scheme and would tell me exactly how much tax to pay and all things like that. So there's, again, it's probably a matter of looking in your local area or getting on the internet and just Googling sort of, you know, broker for direct payments and stuff like that. But there definitely are lots of support out there, and you should always try and tap into that, as is there for payroll, human resource advice, tax, etc. So that kind of covers all of that. One that Richard mentioned a couple of weeks ago was around the National Centre for Independent Living. So if you go on their website, they will give you information on local independent living centres, and again, they might be able to support you or signpost you into the right area. And that's where obviously mentioned local IL centres. The Office for Disability Issues website, so they're a kind of national body that can give lots of help and advice and facts and stats, and have done lots of research. So definitely give them a look if you're looking into this whole world, or maybe sort of you've been doing it a while but just looking to make sure it's all going as it should be. There's some, you know, helpful information on there. Disabled people organisations such as HAFAD, which is Hammersmith and Fulham Action for Disability, and GMCDP, which is the Greater Manchester Coalition for Disabled People, and they're very much about grassroots. You know, lots of disabled people that actually run the organisation and really understand the issues that are at stake, and, you know, always willing to help. As are the national disability charities such as Scope, have a big information, advice and support network, which includes the F2F that I've put is for parents. So face-to-face network is very much around parents supporting parents as well. So it's a general signposting. And then in Cheshire Disability. And obviously disability-specific charities. So do you want to mention a bit about the trust, as you've been the chair there, Toby?
Yeah, I mean, there are various, you know, charities out there that represent, you know, different disabilities. But, you know, the one that probably Srin, Martin and I are in touch with is, you know, the Jennifer Trust for Spinal Muscular Atrophy, because we have SMA. And, you know, they have a lot of information and resources, and, you know, very helpful in providing advice and information. So, you know, and it's also tailored towards people with SMA as well. So, you know, if there are any specific SMA questions, they're the best people to answer those questions than, say, you know, like a general disability charity, for example.
Yeah. So it's probably maybe when something's very much down to a specific disability, like your particular needs, you'd go to that specific charity.
Yeah.
But if it's maybe broad about political sorts of policies, or, you know, generic employment law and things like that, then while the JTSMA would know it and we would go there as well, the overarching national charities for other disabilities would know it as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of picking and choosing for the right moment. Is there anything you want to add to external support, Srin?
In what context?
So like place sort of signposting, helpful
Yeah,
organisations.
I can't think of any organisations off the top of my head. So I guess it's a bit of a Google job in terms of just looking for sites out there that can that can actually direct you towards sources of help. But I'm guessing if you sort of start with sort of the larger organisations and then drill down from there, you will usually find sort of the answers that you need.
Yeah.
I think one of the good places to start is to find charities that are local to you, because you've mentioned Hafad, and I live in Hammersmith and Fulham, and Hafad is one of the first ones I was actually in touch with, because they've obviously got a good relationship with the local social services.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I was at university in Derby, Derby had similar organisations, and that they're really helpful because they've got very local knowledge, and they've got good relationships with local social services as well.
So there's also kind of tying all the dots together.
Yeah.
So you're almost using more than one
Yeah.
that can kind of all collaborate a little bit for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I found the JTSMA incredibly helpful because the main thing for me was just the peer support. Meeting people who are in the same boat, the same disability.
Yeah.
Like us.
Like us.
Yeah.
Now having an amazing time in New York together.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll crack on. I want to make sure we have enough time for questions for you guys at the end as well. So recruiting PAs, we were having a bit of a chat about this as well earlier, how I think a generic kind of personal experiential aspect for me has been very much about network. So once I'd started at Coventry, who did actually, kind of advertise and recruit the PAs themselves, over time that sort of gave me a network of people that I knew, and then other friends were maybe happy to do some care, or friends of friends were happy to do care. So my point is I never absolutely had to put out a job advert and then do the sorts of interviewing and shortlisting and all that process. But that process is very important. We're going to clearly touch upon it now. But it's sort of a balancing act that you need the right person to be able to help with the needs that you have and feel comfortable with that. But if no one is available in your immediate network, then the logic would be to go down the route we've got here on the bullet points on the slides here. But I don't know, do you want to sort of talk about your experience with that, Srin, because you've had a bit more than I have?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Toby as well. I have extensively recruited using mainly using the Gumtree. I find it sort of a good site for attracting sort of large numbers of people. I do think that Gumtree is better if you're recruiting from certain parts of the country. So if you are in London, for example, I think other people have also mentioned that it is far easier to recruit people when using those sorts of sites. But then I guess the flip side, when you do use sort of websites that reach out to a large number of people, you may get a lot of people applying, but then the quality of the people that apply can also vary, and that's where the importance of having an interview, requesting good references, making sure that CRB checks, so Criminal Record Bureau checks are available. This is all factored into the recruitment process, because it's not like, as Martin said, if you are kind of recruiting through a network, you will already have like someone through recommendation, and quite a lot of sort of the issues that would concern you just recruiting someone who you've never come across before generally slide away. So much of it does depend on how exactly you are going to go about to recruit someone. So just coming back to the way that I personally do it, the way I structure it is that after I put an ad out into the Gumtree, I'll usually then sort of select a handful of people who have sort of responded, invite them for an interview. And when I say an interview, I mean it's nothing particularly formal. Usually it's just a very informal chat, just to see if I can build up a rapport with the person and just find out a bit about the person, because in all fairness, they're going to be spending quite a lot of the day and quite a lot of their life with you. So, you need to be able to see whether there is some sort of personality fit. And then after that, I think it then just comes down to the actual individual and recruiting someone who you think is the right fit for you.
So we've got the top there with job description. Have you ever had something as formal as that, or is it more just in your mind, the sort of general way the job would be?
On the advert, I do actually put down quite a detailed job description. I think it's from past experience, it's better slightly to overstate what you need than understate, because then when you do recruit someone, essentially you aren't misrepresenting the kind of the full extent of what's required. Just for example, if you do not entirely cover everything that you need help with, and then you recruit someone and then you surprise them with more than what they originally thought they were going to do, that can make things a little bit harder than, say, the other way around, where you say more than what you actually need, and then what may actually be needed is less.
Yeah, no, that's true. Have you got anything you want to add to that, Toby?
I think I did it similarly to Srin, actually. I used Gumtree the last time I recruited somebody back in January, and it was brilliant. I had over 100 responses to the advert.
Oh.
I think the key when you're recruiting people is to basically filter them through a funnel. So I had 100 inquiries, but actually when I sent out the application form and asked them to fill it in, only 50% of those people actually sent an application form back to me. So automatically, got rid of half the people, and then I just broke it down. So because basically, there are a number of set questions on the application form, and I awarded points for different things. So if somebody had a driver's license, for example, or or they had done some training and handling and moving and handling, then they got more points than somebody who didn't. And then that was my way of being able to order, who was kind of at the top of the list, because I was having 50 people to filter. And then I narrowed it down to 11 people, and I interviewed them. I met them in a hotel, and then I selected the top 4 people that I liked for a second interview. And they came in the evening. They helped me cook dinner. I spent like 3 hours with them, and that just gave me an opportunity to find out whether there was a personality match as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and knowing from my experience, but from what you two have said, that while it's important that an individual is able to help with, sort of the hoisting and the house stuff and all that, but it's actually about a rapport and being able to get on with a person.
Yeah.
That seems to be the overriding thing that's so important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on Gumtree, actually, one of the great things on Gumtree is that you can set it up so that people have to meet certain criteria. So if you definitely have to have somebody who drives, for example, you can set it up in such a way that they have to fill out a little questionnaire before they can submit an application. So if they don't tick the I can drive box, they get filtered out anyway. So it means that you have to deal with less.
Okay, yeah.
And I try and automate the process as much as possible. So I use SurveyMonkey, which is a free survey tool, as my application form, because people can just fill out the form online. You don't have to deal with paperwork.
Yeah. So it automates it, makes it, while there's a lot we're talking about to consider, actually it doesn't have to be so time consuming and arduous as it might sound, by using things like, doing the streamlining and the automation as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And we've got CRBs at the bottom, and I know, again, for me, because I've generally always known who my PIs were, I sort of didn't feel it was as necessary to do a criminal check, but clearly when it's someone that you maybe have never met before, then it's a good idea to safeguard and check those sort of things. I know you said you have to do it with your council, is that right,
Yeah,
Shane?
I think it changes from local authority to local authority, but for example, my local authority do actually insist on anyone I employ having a CRB check.
And what's the process, just so the guys know?
Essentially, what my local authority have done is they've contracted a local charity who sort of do the administration of it, and they will ask your potential applicant to fill out a form, and essentially that form just goes to the CRB office, and they just process it and run a check on their database, and then you get back details of whether they have a clear criminal record or not.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's all good. So I think that probably is most of the recruiting PA aspects. I was thinking around advertising. Obviously, you both mentioned Gumtree. There are other, we're not being sponsored by Gumtree. I must say that there are other reputable places to place an advert. Yeah, I was going to say PA Pool as well with our friend Katie, which is very much an online sort of entity that tries to match PAs with PA users, and it uses things like location and then the sort of hours or days that someone is willing to work and the hours or days that a disabled person needs. And then, yeah, a bit like a dating site really, you can kind of match people together. So have a look at PA Pool if you're ever looking to do that as well.
And you also just have things like the job centre, the local job centre, and other sort of local magazines where
Even shop windows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just anything which attracts an audience of people.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, we've all had experience of people coming from far-flung places to do our care. So it's probably not as essential that the person would live within a couple of miles as it used to be. Because if you have a block of, say, a week with someone caring for you, then they can travel in to do that and go again, can't they? So again, it's sort of down to the needs that you have. We've got a phone call coming in now, so that's probably the hoist, isn't it? I'm just going to mute it a second. Okay, Bjorn's taking the phone call.
Oh, yeah, the hoist.
Yeah, they come for the hoist. We'll carry on anyway. Bjorn should be able to sort it. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. This is a fantastic example of live webinaring when on holiday.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can need that. Yeah, that's great.
So offering the role. So once we've been through all of the process that we just discussed a moment ago, and as Toby and Srin said, you've sort of been through all the checks and interviews, and you're deciding on the one person that you actually want to have do it, then you'd have a contract which would outline the general terms as well of, sort of days worked and rates and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe look at probationary periods, so there might be a 3-month period of time. So both sides of the PA and the PA user can actually decide, if that's going to... Vic's kicking off here. Vic's telling us we're very unprofessional. So that's what happens when you sign up for free webinars, I'm afraid, Vic, So
Vic's going to get a bill for this webinar.
yeah, we actually are going to bill you for our time now, Vic. So that will get you back for being cheeky there. And Toby has just left the room to go and sort the hoist out. So you just got Srin and I at the moment. But yeah, so as mentioned, the probationary period, so that would be where both sides could kind of have a trial period and work out how it works for both sides before agreeing a more permanent contract. Employed versus self-employed, so we talked a lot about the PAYE and the taxes and everything like that, which would come under an employed status. And this would be very much down to talking to your local council and social worker if this is allowed and okay. But there is a way of sometimes having the PA self-employed, which takes away the need to contribute to national insurance as an employer. So basically, sorry, Shrin's going to say something.
Just I would warn people to be very wary about sort of the employed, self-employed.
Yeah.
It's one of those things which HMRC look towards the substance rather than the name. So just saying that someone is self-employed doesn't mean that they are self-employed. Like HMRC would look towards the level
Yes.
of control you have over that person. Essentially, does that person have the character of an employee? Do you control their hours, their times? Do you insist on when they can and cannot have holiday? So if the evidence looks like they are just an employee, just calling yourself self-employed and them a contractor will make no difference, and you may still be responsible for things like PAYE.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, it's good to clarify that. But I think, yeah, the overall point is that there are different ways of having the agreement, and it could be totally employment, and it could be that the person is sort of more responsible for their own tax returns and you're bringing them in as a self-employed person. So it's just kind of balancing out there. Obviously, as I said, in the contract you'd want to state what the pay is and what the days worked would be, notice periods of terminating the contract, and other entitlements as well, if that is something that you've factored in from your budget to be able to offer that. And then the top tip is a template. So if any of you guys want to see a template of a contract, then give me an email. So you'll get the email from me with the video and the evaluation form probably tomorrow. So yeah, I can also, if you want that, I can add the template there as well. So we've just been through that slide there, Toby, about offering the role once you've got the one person who you want to be your PA.
Oh, great.
And just been through all that. So I don't know if you had any other overarching thoughts on that, but we've just been going through the contracts and sort of just clarifying the agreement, really.
Yeah, I think it's just about open communication. So I normally write them a letter, of offering employment, which just lays out the particulars, like how many days they're working, how much they're going to earn. But yeah, everything's in the contract. So
Cool. Right, we'll crash on. So then the day-to-day side. So Toby mentioned you have your rota on Google Documents, so that's something I'm going to be putting into place after this holiday. But it's a great idea, so that, yeah, obviously this is so that everyone knows when they're going to be working, in terms of you always have more than one PA if you have 24 care like the three of us do. So I think I plan sometimes up to 6 months ahead, and there's always a general routine of certain people that do certain days or time periods, but just to pop that into a spreadsheet and have it all down with a calendar, it just, everyone knows where they're at, and then when people need to move onwards as well, then we're going to have to, we'll move on to questions in about 5 minutes, I reckon. Should be good. Coming to the end of the slides in a moment. But yeah, basically, the rota just helps everyone to know where they're meant to be and where they're at. Payday, I don't know why, I always had mine on the 8th. There was no rationale, but the 8th of every month was the day when I would go onto my care account, bank account there, and then pay over the relevant money for each of my PAs. And again, that would have been sort of taking the days they've done within a month, timesing it by their day rates, and making sure they all get the amount that they worked and were entitled to. And then finally, the monitoring forms. So another big part of the day-to-day running of a care team is being able to show the council that the money has all gone on care, because thus far we've just talked about having a bank account and a budget and paying it towards care, but you could argue prior to the monitoring form bullet point that someone could just spend the money on what they would want, but you have an obligation and responsibility that money is only for your care needs to be accounted for. Exactly. And the monitoring forms are a way of showing all of the income to that ring-fenced care bank account and all of the outgoings, so that the council can check every 3 months, every quarter, that things are all as they should be. So retention sounds a bit corporate, really. Actually, I probably should have a different name for that one. But essentially, it's about it's so much easier to have a person doing your care who knows your needs and you have that rapport with, having interviewed for them, that they can stay with you for a longer period of time. Because if someone came and worked with you for 1 month and then they left and you had to go through everything again, it would be very, very difficult and time consuming. So the idea of retention generally is about that, it works for both sides in the long run. And I think a big part of that is boundaries. So we talked about, the layout in the contract of the terms of the agreement, but that would sort of be around confidentiality, both sides. Being able to communicate is the second part about those boundaries. And then if there are any problems or issues that are going on, then there's always the third party as a last resort. That would be a kind of mediation organisation. And if anyone ever came up with that, then they can actually... Srin's going to say something.
I think in terms of boundaries, I think sometimes you just have to keep it simple and just jot down to yourself what things do you not want the person to do, what things do you not mind the person to do. And it is just that openness which makes everything far clearer.
Yeah, definitely. And all that the boundaries are always going to vary person to person, that we keep saying, but I think that's just very much about open communication. I know I often always ask my PAs how they're getting on and making sure everything's above board and they're happy, and if there's issues we always try and change the rota or change the different practices. So good news as well is the new hoist has been delivered, so we will be able to go to bed and have showers tonight. So it would have been nice if we'd had the travel one today, because it's been quite a day on it, lads. But equally, it's all good. We've solved all the little hitches, and we'll go out and have a few drinks later on and celebrate the new hoist. More than a few. Is there anything you want to mention about? Just been talking about sort of boundaries, communication, and sort of making sure everyone's always happy with the working practices.
Yeah, the most important one on there is really communication, I would say.
Yeah.
I've been quite fortunate. The carers that I've had over the last few years have stayed with me for quite a long time. So, I've had somebody with me for 6 years, somebody with me for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's down to communication, really.
Yeah. There's always a way of tweaking things and solving things. And then I'm sure if at the end of the day there is a difference, the sort of needs, then that's, like you say, over 6 or 7 years is time to have a change as well. But on the whole, it can normally be sorted out and ironed out and worked through.
Yeah, we're all human, and there will be ups and downs, and it's funny because it's a relationship at the end of the day,
Yeah.
And there will be ups and downs. So the best thing to do is communicate.
And it's always a bit with the boundaries comment as well, but I suppose to put it in a context is how when the PAs living with you, it's sort of a professional angle, but there is almost I don't want to say friendship, but a social interaction side, isn't there? And so sort of when you're living in the same building a lot of the week, there's things that will come up there that is always good to be communicative about, as much as the job and the professional aspects as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add to that, Srin? Nope. Okay, so we're drawing to the end of the slides, and we can move on to your questions. But I think the new outcomes, and the thing I mentioned earlier, was about always progressing. So when I did the outcomes-based pilot scheme at Hackney, the 3 things that I picked as my outcomes, one was to retain my care package, the second thing was physical exercise, and the third thing was something a bit more adventurous. So fortunately, the care package remained at the same level, so I was able to have all of the care needs maintained. I told you earlier about how I found the local pool that I could go swimming, so once a week for the last 18 months or thereabouts, I've been going swimming more and feeling a lot more healthy and happier in sort of body and mind for actually getting out the chair and moving my legs around more and doing some physical exercise and getting the heart beating a little bit more. And then thirdly, as you know, through the blog and chatting with Toby and Srin and I as well, that we've had some good holidays and trips and fun times as well. So I've definitely achieved those outcomes. And then when a year later, about this, I think it was about April time this year, I set some new outcomes, and one of those was around starting my own social enterprise. And again, the social worker and social services were giving me helpful information and advice on ways of making that possible. And as you know, a couple of months ago, that was achieved. But the point is to always set yourself new goals, and don't just think once you've got direct payments and PA set up that's it. That's the beginning really. That's to enable you to go on and do lots of other cool stuff if that's what you so choose. But have you got any examples of sort of continually progressing and using social care to help that at all?
Not so much on the social side, I would say, or the care side of things. But
that underpins.
Yeah, I mean, always, I'm a big fan of setting goals because I do coaching as well. So I'm a big fan of setting goals anyway. So I would say just to tie that in with your care package, and make sure social services are there and they know what you want to achieve. So you get the right level of support.
And I think it helps when a social worker understands that you're someone that wants to get out and, for example, work and interact with friends and live a normal life, that they then see the importance of helping you with that.
Yeah.
That it's not just money that's coming out of their budget and it's a sort of hassle. They get the fact that it's about giving you a good quality of life.
Yeah.
How about you, Srin?
You've put me on the spot there, Martin. The honest answer is no.
No. The new outcomes is something that's been rolled out as we speak, really. So it's always been about care in the past.
Yeah, and I guess I think, some ways I'm probably very organised with things, in other ways I'm probably a little bit more shoot from the hip. And this is probably just one of those things. I just sort of get on with whatever I need to do and sort of just do it as I need, really, rather than making it more structured and having set outcomes or set goals.
But once you do decide, I know you're very good at then decomposing the problems and finding the solutions. So I think that's the broad attitude of new outcomes, really, isn't it? It's just that you do what you want to do as a person, but then work out where the disability parts make it a bit harder, and then find solutions for that. Cool. I think we're almost at the end of the slides now. So we had this slide up a couple of weeks ago, but it's very much about what we've just been talking and applying it to your disability, your needs, and all the dreams that you have as well. So I won't go through that too much because I think you were on the webinar a couple of weeks ago. But just try and apply all the different things that we've talked about today, to your situation really. I haven't gone into the diamond theory because I think you've all seen the ebook that I at last got it up and out. So you hopefully been able to have a bit more of a read of that as well. But also a lot of this is again part of that overarching theory. So what we've covered what personalisation means, what to expect from your assessment, how to deal with potential issues, recruiting personal assistants, offering and accepting the role, day-to-day running, retention, and new outcomes. So hope that's all been very useful to your respective situations. And we'll move on to the questions. There's a few bits and bobs have been coming in while we've been chatting away, so I'll have a little backtrack as well and read out some of the comments that have come in. But then obviously also whether you want to ask a question or clarify something or even just add some more thoughts of your own into the melting pot, then just get typing now. So Trisha said, do you find it hard having to have someone by your side all the time? No, I think it's something you get more used to, and also like Toby said with communication and boundaries, it's about there are and there should be times where you're not always with somebody. I think everyone needs their own space and their own time, and that's just about realising that, appreciating that, and trying to make that possible. Is that fair to say, guys? Yeah. Vic said, my payroll guy is a Spurs fan. Yay. Controversial on the Srin side, being an Arsenal fan. Alan said voluntary councils may have a signposted service for PA responsibilities. So yeah, absolutely. That's we gave some general pointers there, but I think it is very much about going to your first port of call and asking the social worker or the relevant contact at your council if there are particular agencies they would recommend. How different did you find moving from a smaller town to a bigger city? I mean, that's more about location rather than care. But moving to London, I remember chatting for a long while with Toby on the phone about if it was possible and how I'd make it all happen. And the personal care side did fit into that with the portability issues that happen when you move from one local authority to the other. And then I remember Toby putting me in touch with you, Srin, as I was arriving in London. And so, yeah, very much this is a great example of peer-to-peer support. But it wasn't easy moving to London. It took years to get totally comfortable and set up. But I think probably sharing with your friends the fears you have and then sort of working through each individual problem is the answer.
I think it's all about peer support, because when I was thinking of going off to uni and then London, I had a couple of people that I got in touch with at the Jennifer Trust. So, Kath and Ruth, for example, who had been there and done it. So Ruth had moved to London, got a job in the city, so she was very much a person that I could talk to about moving down to London after I finished university.
It's also seeing it's done, isn't it? Someone else has done it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, just to show that it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Going down the list of questions. So Jackie said, do you pay different rates for different times? Example, night and day, holidays. Have you come across issues with minimum wage? Do you want to take that one, Srin?
It depends on the package that you've been provided from social services. Again, unfortunately, I think the different local authorities have different ways of dealing with this. Whereas my local authority just they do an assessment and then they'll give you a set sum of money that takes into account all the help you need during a given time period, which includes help during night and birthday. So they don't effectively differentiate that sort of detail of what you need during the day.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to add anything to that, Toby?
I think Hammersmith and Fulham is similar. When they assess you, they basically say how many hours your PAs will be doing stuff. They don't say, oh, we're going to pay you 24 hours because they're there 24 hours. So you do have to, I just pay a flat rate every 24 hours rather than a different day and night rate.
Yeah.
But going back to one of your first points about, saying your limitations.
Yeah.
For example, I was very clear with social services that I wake up a lot in the night. And so technically it's a waking night. So they pay a higher rate if it's a waking night than a sleeping night. Okay. So you just have to be aware of the different rates and try and get what you can.
So it's sort of knowing the way the system works, isn't it? Understanding when the questions have been asked by a social worker, what they're trying to ascertain and what their different sort of policies are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Alan said ask questions from others who have experienced PA involvement. I think that was our prior point about sort of, like you said, Toby, about asking other people, their experience and learning from that
Yeah.
to be able to get where you want to. Jackie's saying thank you, so you're very welcome.
You're welcome, Jackie.
She said, very annoying when you come out of university and want to set up a bank account and they don't relate to you as a person. I suppose that's just broadly about setting up the secondary bank account, which I think there was a few hitches I had when it first happened, just because it was with the same, I was with Nationwide and I opened a second account and they were a bit prickly about it, but I think, in the end that's something that was sort of possible to overcome as well. Do you have any experience on the bank account front?
No, it's all quite,
Yeah.
it's quite straightforward to me, actually. I actually opened a different bank account with what I already had. Just for sort of just admin, really. Having a different account means you get different bank statements, and it's just easier for kind of filing purposes. If I just had loads of bank statements on HSBC, I guess it's more effort for me having to filter out which ones are for my care budget, which ones are my personal budget.
Yeah.
So I've just kept 2 different bank accounts. So as soon as I see Nationwide sort of mail, I know, okay, that means it's something to do with the care budget.
Interesting. That's cool, yeah, because mine are both with Nationwide. But yeah, because also about general banking online as well. That's made it a lot easier, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Within the monitoring forms, you can actually even email all of the bank statements downloaded from online.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I pay the tax directly via internet banking to HMRC.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've registered, well, now with HMRC, you have to do your end of year forms online. Before, I think only up to last year, you could still do the paperwork if you had less than 50 employees or 500 employees, but now everybody has to do online forms, and surprisingly, it's quite a good system, actually. It's, it's quite easy.
Cool. Okay, just having a look down at the other questions. Vic said that he's made his own funky Excel spreadsheet to monitor his income and outgoings. So yeah, again, that's the sort of use of technology, which I suppose makes sense when we're not very practical with folders and paper and that sort of thing. But when you're at a computer, it's more possible to do that for yourself, isn't it? So,
yeah, I think just a point actually, what Vic said is that, because I've got an Excel, well, I use Google Docs anyway for even the spreadsheet, but it's quite useful to do a cash flow of your year, so because I have money coming from different people, I've got my own personal contributions, then there's social services and the IRF, and then you have to work out when you're going to pay people, whether you'll have enough money in the bank account. So it's quite useful to do a cash flow, and if you just Google cash flow, they'll show you a template on how to do a cash flow so you can see what's coming in and out every month.
Brilliant, yeah, it's a good tip.
Or you could just do the lazy man approach, which I've done, and just pay someone, pay an agency to sort all this payroll admin out for you.
Yeah, and that's all, like we said, back to personal preference as well, isn't it? So I can't, Alan saying separate banks, excellent idea to make things simpler.
Yeah.
So yeah, he agrees with your point there, Srin. So yeah, I think there's not many other questions coming in. Michael's saying, thanks for your information, Martin and Co. Have a great time in New York. Regards, Mike. So thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Hope it was helpful.
Thank you.
But yeah, unless there's any other questions coming in, there's not any broader things we want to add, I don't think. Anything overarching. We've covered quite a lot, really. 2 things actually I wanted to say. One is apparently my little niece, Jasmine, has been watching. So hello, Jazzy, and I look forward to showing you the pictures of New York when we get home. So hope you enjoyed learning all about how I run my personal care and how Srin and Toby do as well. And also I've noticed on the attendee list that Julie is watching. Now Julie's someone that I've come into contact who has SMA over in Australia, and I don't know what the time is, but it's probably about 4 or 5 in the morning. And she told me last time that she's able to log on in bed using her iPhone or her iPod, but she can't use the chat box. So obviously, if you have any questions, Julie, give me an email tomorrow. But that's nice to see that you've woken up in the middle of the night to join us on this webinar. So I hope you found that useful. I know Julie's looking to do a lot of work out in Sydney about improving the rights for disabled people. So That's all good. The next one is into. Just said, you two sound great together. You're out there proving that living independently is great. Well done.
Thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Vic says, get back to enjoying your holiday,
We will,
guys.
don't worry. We will.
Yeah.
New York is pretty cool.
Hillary and Jackie, I bet you're saying, have a great time, guys, and thank you. And Alan was asking how many there are. There's about 11 logged on today, so it's not bad. Good turnout. Cool. All right. Well, I think we're gonna we'll sign off, guys. But as always, give me an email if anything pops up, and if you have any specific problems, I'm happy to Skype with you about it as well. So just keep in touch, and I'll send the video and everything on tomorrow. But thank you, Toby, for your input.
You're welcome, mate.
Thank you, Srin.
You're welcome.
Let's go and hit the Big Apple.
Let's go hit the town.
So, bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.